Hey everybody, it's Dave here from Dragonhill Games, and you're watching This Week in MTG Finance. As always, and before we get started, I want to thank MTG Stocks for allowing us to use graphical information for the purposes of this video. Over the course of the last couple weeks or so, we've seen the buying trends shifting away from things like the reserve list and more into the commons and uncommons from some of these older sets like Antiquities, Legends, Revised, The Dark, things of that nature. And that is definitely continuing this week. So let's dive right into our top 10 list. And we're going to start here with Rime Feather Owl from Cold Snap. In the number 10 spot, Rime Feather Owl is a bit of an obscure card from Cold Snap. It's up 233% this week to $3.15. Now this is the only printing of this card. And it's up for obvious reasons, but it's interesting that it's only really started to move in the last couple of weeks or so. It's a 7 mana, but you get a flying snow bird. And its power and toughness is equal to the number of snow permanents in play, which is very important because it counts all of the snow permanents on the battlefield. You can pay 1 snow mana and 1 to put an ice counter on a permanent, and then of course that permanent becomes a snow permanent. This obviously works well with many new cards we've seen coming out of Kaldheim. Having information is one of the most important things in Magic the Gathering, especially in things like Commander. In the number 9 spot, we have the blue version of Telepathy in Revelation from Legends at $112.50. This card is up 243% this week. Now, it's slightly worse than Telepathy in that all players play with their hands revealed, and Telepathy is only your opponents for the same mana cost, of course, in blue. However, a lot of times, if I'm playing green, I'm not going to care if you know that I have a few big stompies in my hand, as long as I know if you have a board wipe. If you happen to want to get a Revelation to put into one of your decks, you can pick up a Chronicles version for a measly 50 cents. Our number 8 winner this week is Dampening Field from Antiquities, a reserve list card, and at $138, this is up 260% this week. For 3 mana, we're getting an enchantment, and players can only untap 1 artifact during their untap phase. It's a perfect card for something like Zur the Enchanter or Estrid, enchantment-based control-type decks. It doesn't actually see a lot of play over on EDH Rec. It appears in less than 100 decks, but that probably has something to do with the availability. For instance, I would definitely run one in my Zur Stacks deck if I could get my hands on one. Coming in at number 7 and also up 260% this week is Llanowar Elves, specifically the Game Night printing at $4. That's right, folks, a copy of Llanowar Elves for $4. This card's actually been slowly creeping up for a couple of years now. And the reason for this is because of this tiny little symbol right here. It actually has the same artwork as the M19 printing, but it's only this little Game Night symbol that makes all of the difference in the world. And I've recently been noticing Game Night cards are getting heavily targeted, especially the playables. Game Night is one of those concepts that I think Wizards has decided to ditch, so it's unlikely we're going to be seeing any more Game Night cards out there. And people do love their weird, obscure collectibles. Until last week, you could pick this card up for around $1, but it really did take a massive jump over the course of the last couple of weeks to $4. Our number 6 winner is up another 311% this week to $70, and that would be the original print of Spirit Link from Legends. This card has been printed a ton. In fact, it was in every core set from 4th edition all the way up to 10th, 7 years in a row. And of note, 10th edition is actually the only other black border printing of this card, besides the old foreign Renaissance set. Spirit Link actually gets a fair bit of play in things like modern boggles. And if you want some of these original prints to bling out your deck, you're gonna be paying a fortune for them. Our number 5 winner this week is a perfect example of cards that have value purely for their collectability reasons. Brassman is up 489% this week to $88. Now, of course, this is the original Arabian Nights printing. First of all, Arabian Nights is really difficult to find anything from that set right now, even something as unplayable as Brassman. Brassman has a couple of other printings, mostly 4th edition and revised, but it's not a card that really sees any play, so there's no reason for them to continue to reprint something like this. For 1 mana, we're getting an artifact creature. He's a 1/3, which seems okay on the surface, but Brassman doesn't untap as normal, and you must pay 1 during your untap phase to untap it. Coming in at number 4, we have the original print of Kismet from Legends, up 533% this week to $75. Man, if this was 1 less mana, I would for sure be playing this in my Xur stack. But at 4 mana, I just can't fetch it out, so it doesn't quite make it into one of the 99. It's actually been errated to say, artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. I could definitely see this getting play in something like Estrid for sure. It's had quite a few reprints, so if you're interested in picking one up, you can do that for around the $1 mark. But here we have another collectible card that's actually playable from the original sets, spiking again this week. I'll be honest, I never even knew our number 3 winner existed. Senastia Falconer is up 802% this week to $24. Now, it's not a reserve list card, but surprisingly, it's also never been reprinted. A lot of these older legends that aren't on the reserve list were reprinted in things like Chronicles. For 5 mana in the Gruul colors, we're getting a 4/4 human shaman, and he has tap, add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. I'm actually a little bit surprised. I went over to EDH Rec. There's like 0 decks with this guy. I think there's like 3 or something along those lines. But there's not really any decks with this guy. And I'm a little bit surprised there's not some more casual lists out there. He's definitely could be a decent rampy type commander, especially if you stuff a bunch of elves in there. He's in the right colors for that kind of stuff, for sure. Interesting card. Again, I was a little bit shocked because I've never even heard of this guy, and he's never been reprinted, yet he's not on the reserve list. In the number 2 spot this week, we have Illumination, an uncommon from Mirage at $3.30. This is up exactly 900% this week. Counterspell for white, again, it's just not on the reserve list either. For 2 white mana, we're getting counter target artifact or enchantment spell, and that spell's controller gains an amount of life equal to that spell's casting cost. Now, meta dependent, I could definitely see this sliding into some casual EDH decks. And our big winner this week, up 1,533% to $24.50, is our Goldie Pixies, the original printing from Antiquities. Of course, you can get a white border printing from Chronicles for like 20 cents if you would like to actually own this card. For 2 mana, we're getting a 2/1. It can't be blocked by artifact creatures, and any damage dealt to it by artifact creatures is reduced to 0. Here we have a perfect example of a card that is on the rise solely because it was printed in Antiquities. Alright, before I get to cards I'm investing in this week, as always, if you're a subscriber, you know I want to thank you for your continued support. And if not, now's a great time to go ahead and hit that subscribe button. My first choice this week is Ashaya Soul of the Wild, a mythic from Zendikar Rising at $7.50. This has been bottoming out for the last month or so. In fact, it's bouncing up off of its all-time lows of $7.27 back on March 12th. Ashaya has the power to absolutely change the game. For 5 mana, we're getting a creature whose power and toughness is equal to the number of lands you control. So she's a threat as soon as she hits the battlefield. Also, non-token creatures you control are forest lands in addition to their other types. She gives you the power to really have an explosive turn following the turn that you play Ashaya. This is one of those cards that's going to appear regularly in green stompy decks and various other green ramp type strategies. Get your hands on Ashaya now for $7.50 while you still can. My last couple picks this week are remastered cards from the brand new Time Spiral set. So let's start here with Laboratory Maniac, currently valued at $3.50. There's a few things I want you to think about when it comes to this card. First of all of the other printings are around the $5 mark, so there's plenty of room for this printing to be playing catch up to that mark. Secondly, this old border treatment of Lab Maniac is unique for that reason. All of the other printings look exactly the same as the original Innistrad printing. And lastly, Laboratory Maniac is just one of those cards that's going to continuously crop up in various formats as a combo piece. So there's always going to be demand for this card, no matter how much it gets printed. And last but not least, we have our speculation play for the week. That's right, it's Mirror Entity from Time Spiral Remastered at $1.40. This is another one of those cards that got the old border treatment in Time Spiral Remastered. It's had quite a few printings, but all of those printings are around the $3 to $4 mark, so there's a lot of room for this card to be playing catch up. And for many of the same reasons that we discussed with Laboratory Maniac, Mirror Entity is one of those cards that just appears in a lot of different decks, especially in Commander. It's a great finisher for go wide decks in white. For 3 mana, we're getting a 1/1 changeling, but we can dump X into it until end of turn. All of our creatures have base power and toughness XX. It's a great time to be picking up the Time Spiral Remastered printing of Mirror Entity. All right, well, I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode of This Week in MTG Finance. If you did, go ahead and smash that like button. It really helps me out, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.